Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we discuss personal Mandela effects with the author, Anthony Santosusso. Mandela Effects is a pop culture word for changes in our physical reality that are different or no longer exist from when we last interacted with it, such as the contradictory memories of Nelson Mandela dying in prison or Nelson Mandela dying a couple years ago as the president of South Africa. So with that, Anthony, welcome to Merkaba Chakras.
Oh, thank you, Vaughn. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, I love it. This is one of my favorite topics in metaphysics is shifts in our reality based off our consciousness. So I've written quite a bit of books about consciousness in Buddhism, and I love hearing another book author provide their insights in their own personal Mandela effects as well. So before we dig into your work, can you tell us your story for how you got into this in the first place?
The Mandela Effect? Wow.
Or reality shifts, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it was back in 2015, I started to have a bunch of experiences after I had an impalement experience.
What happened with the impalement?
It's very descriptive in the book. I just, everything was synchronistic. Everything had to happen the way it happened for me to fall straight down like a board and hit a glass table. My chin hit the ground, but it shouldn't have. And I realized something was trying to get out my back. And I don't know how long I stayed on all fours. But eventually I just said, all right, you're going to lose a lot of blood. You got to just hurry up and get to a phone and don't lose consciousness. This is the address. And I finally just pushed myself up and turned on the light, which it was pitch black. And I think that does have something to do with it, that I wasn't aware that I should have died. After I put the light on, I ripped my t-shirt off. The light was blinding me, and the thing that I impaled myself on was behind another table, where the day before I said, wow, I should move that because somebody could get hurt. After that, a couple of weeks went by where I was, it was a voluntary layoff at work. I was pretty much zombified, walking around trying to figure out what happened, because I'm like, I know what I remember. And at the time, it was a lot stronger. I mean, it's become weaker over the years, but I remember how strong the memory was of the whole entire incident. And I just deduced from it that, and not right away. This took years. Like that first 2 weeks, I just walked around and looking on YouTube and stayed in my robe. I just didn't understand why I wasn't dead. That for that whole 2 weeks, it was just foggy. I would go out in the backyard and it was just a complete fog, and I'd be like waiting for a sign to flash up to say, please excuse us while we change your reality. I was reading up on the Mandela Effect at the time. I wasn't really totally affected. But after the impalement and I started reading, then all of a sudden I was affected.
So what did you impale? What did you impale? Like, what did it, like?
Right, my heart, right here.
Your heart.
Right where my heart used to be. At the time, the heart was here. 2 weeks later, I discovered that the heart moved, which is a Mandela effect. The heart moved for me and for many others. It used to be here, and now it's here, smaller and protected by the ribs, like it should be. But before, it really wasn't as protected, and it was smaller, and it was more to the left.
Right. So, like, when I was growing up, when you say the Pledge of Allegiance in school, they say, put your hand over your heart, cross over your heart, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I did that all through grade school, high school. They put your hand over your heart, exactly the spot that you are doing, not put your hand over the middle of your chest and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Right. And we still do that now, where we tell children, put your hand over here, but we don't say put it over your heart anymore.
Right.
So
Strange.
exactly.
So that, in a way, I guess, was probably the first Mandela effect that affected me, but I didn't really. There was a video I saw. It was about Sex in the City and a couple others that I was like, absolutely not, And I watched the video and I'm like, whoa, maybe there's something to this, because I didn't get the Berenstain Bear one. I've seen it before the impalement. I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, Berenstain Bear. I said, wait, now, before the Berenstain Bears, I never heard of them. After the impalement and the Berenstain Bears, I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, I do remember them. I just assumed when I lived in Pittsburgh, I guess it was 2011, 2000, right before 2012. I came across these children's books in Borders, and I'm like, why am I staring at these books? So it's a new children's book, big deal. I wasn't looking at the spelling. It was one of those moments where I just stared. And I've caught that, and I mentioned it in my book. I believe that there's quite a few times where I will just stare at something, and now I'm realizing, whoa, something's different, or there's a change, or something's wrong, or maybe something just shifted. I don't know what it is, but the staring, I think the ringing also has something, ringing in the ears that a lot of people talk about has something to do with it. But that back in 2012, when I saw them, I blew it off. And then, 3 years later, everybody's talking about the spelling of the name Berenstain Bears changed. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It changed. That doesn't affect me. And then I looked it up, and they've been around since 1962. My daughter told me I read the books to her, and I'm like, absolutely not. These things just popped up for me. I never heard of them. And that's really strange. I mean, I would have read them to she read every book under the sun when she was a kid. So, yeah. Then I just started to investigate the Mandela effect throughout 15. I caught on to the Mandela Effects site.com site, the site that Fiona Broome put out. I know there's a lot of talk about, what's going on there. I don't even know if the site's still up. But at one point, Fiona commented and said, you have the most comments on this site. She's had it up since, I guess, I don't even know what, 2011 maybe, 2010 she might have had it up since. There were 9 threads when I got to that site since 2010. From, I think it was August 2015 when I signed up for the site and started to read every single line. From then until January, there were 15 threads. Okay, so it doubled in that short amount of time. During that time, when I was reading that, I absolutely recall the evil leaving my body as I sat there in a corner because my computer broke down, and I'd sit there in a corner on my phone reading these threads, and I could feel the evil leave, and I could feel it looking over my shoulder to see what I was reading. At night, it was creepy. I was excited for it. Don't get me wrong, because I would wake up in the morning. I remember this clearly. I'd wake up in the morning. It was a 24-hour day would be 3 to 5 hours sleep, 1 meal, and me reading threads and just trying to meditate. Reading threads and just laying still and just being just constantly meditating. I'd never even realized that. I'm sitting here reminiscing it now. And it had to be 2-3 weeks of that. Just constantly reading. And then it would start to get dark, and I would get so excited because I knew it was just going to be a lot of anxiousness. I knew I was going to be sitting in the corner of the room watching the shadows, and I just knew it. I looked forward to it. One of those times I recall, I hope I put this in the book. I was looking at a video on my phone from YouTube, and I was looking up the wall because the wall kept coming up. Just the word the wall. And I'm like, well, let me look it up and see what happens. Well, this black screen pops up, and it's all staticky, and this man's voice is coming through going, this is, I don't know this verbatim, but this is a crack in reality. We call it the wall. And I said, oh my God. And I had to use the bathroom. So I hit pause. I put the phone down. I run into the bathroom. I come back. When I come back to my phone, it's not there. It's not in my history. It's nowhere. It doesn't exist. And I'm just like, well, what was that?
Okay, pause. At the time I was. So first, explain what the wall, like what did the video entail? This, this wall.
That one that video that disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it was 15 seconds of me listening to it. It was a black screen. It was just a crackling. I could hear static, and I kept trying to listen, and I could hear this man's voice coming through saying something to the effect that what we call this, and I was studying Mandela Effects, so I'm assuming that's what they were talking about, or whatever it was. We call it the wall. It's a crack in reality or something. And then that brought me to the album, The Wall, and which changes for me even now. The whole first side of the album will say for me, you're just another break in the wall. It doesn't say brick in the wall. When I listen to it, it says you're just another break in the wall. And some other people have heard break. The first time they say it, sometimes people hear
Who's
break.
Who's the artist?
Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd. Okay. All right.
Pink Floyd, the album The Wall, the whole first side.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a pretty popular song. All in all, you're just you're just another. See, I'm saying it the way I hear it now, which is not the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't hear it that way, though. I've had people in the car sit next to me and hear it one way, and I hear it, you're just another break in the wall. And that's not the words. From there, and that it was the same CD. It was that's the other thing. It was a CD that I made, and I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. That I don't even know if I still have that. That would be interesting to find.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you quick questions to clarify some things for people. So, when you had your, I don't know if it's a near-death experience or you had your impalement into your heart. Okay, but when you had your traumatic injury where you got impaled in the heart, and then you woke up out of this experience, you said that you had a ringing in the ear. Did you ever had ringing in the ear before?
I don't know about the ringing in the ear there. If it sounded like I said that I had a ringing in the ear when that happened, that's not true. I've had ringing in my ear my whole life.
Okay. So
before and after.
Before and after. So the ringing in the ear. Do you ever look to see if you have some kind of like tendinitis or something like that?
I do not. You
do not. Okay, because you've had hearing tests and you come clean. So
well,
the ringing.
No.
Okay. The ringing in the ears, is it getting louder at times, or is it a consistent timing, or can you explain that further?
It's different. It's different every time. When I say every time now, I mean in packs. And like I'll say, last week I heard it 3 times. I have not heard it all this week. One time the ringing came in and I mentally blocked it out, and another ring came over top of it, covering it, and that one came in. Other times, instead of trying to block it, I've accepted it. I don't know what it is, so I don't know if it has anything to do with the Mandela effect or not. I have suspicions of what I think's going on. I mean, I think it's very good possibility we're in some sort of simulation, and
right.
The creator is making adjustments. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, tuning. So the question, tuning up the reality. So the question with the ringing is, I hear this a lot with people too, and I get this as well. And I have had my hearing tested many times throughout my life, recently and in the past, and I've always had really good hearing. It nobody else can hear it. Some people can hear it, but nobody else can hear it. But it is kind of like a high pitched frequency, but it doesn't hurt your ears. It's just this high pitched silent frequency. Kind of like when somebody blows that for dogs, they blow the silent ringing, and a dog can hear it, and it kind of startles them. It's like that. I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm a dog sometimes when I hear that ringing, because I'm like, has anybody else hearing this? So, but the
I'm
question with
wondering
the
what's going on.
yeah.
Okay.
But the question and the ringing is a certain frequency that only certain people can pick up. Now, my husband is in music as well. I see you have some music stuff there too. And he has tested my hearing, and there's certain decimals that goes up to. And he stops at maybe like 9, 10. I'm going up to 16. And then at 16, I'm like, stop it. And I'm screaming because it's hurting my ears. It's hurting is making me want to jump out. And he's going, I haven't heard anything since 9. What are you hearing? And so I know the difference between my husband and I is that I pick up higher frequencies, silent frequencies, that other people are not picking up. So the question I always ask somebody when they pick up these silent higher frequencies is, does something happen to you in your reality afterwards? I mean, is there some kind of thing that we can go, okay, well, this is typically what happens after that, besides
I've tried to pay attention to that. I've tried to pay attention to that, and I can honestly say no. I really don't think anything is different. It's not like I see a ring, I hear the ringing, and then pick up a Mandela effect or anything like that. So no, there's not for me anyway.
Okay, so because that is a constant thing that some people pick up higher frequencies, and we know in Buddhism that reality is fine-tuned based off of frequency. So a lower, it's kind of like and I relate it to Buddhism because this is Buddhism in fifth dimension, but it's all the same. It's all metaphysics, but it's a different perspective.
It's all religion to me.
It's a different perspective on reality. But anyway, so in Buddhism, when there's different tones, and certain people of certain consciousness can pick up higher tones, what they do with it is different. But the thing is that it's like when you're looking at a TV, the higher the resolution, the clearer and crisper the reality. So someone who is of a higher frequency and picks up these silent higher tunes may be picking up a crisper, cleaner reality. Because reality is just perception of how we see it. So somebody of lower frequency will not see as much, but somebody of higher frequency will see more, such as the changes in physical reality. You see, it's a picture quality kind of thing.
I think that definitely goes along with some of the thoughts I've been having recently.
What have you had?
Not even recently. I've even done some videos on it. As far as, from my perspective, I'm the only one here, and everyone else is just an aspect of who they would be had they lived in this reality of mine. And, same goes for you. From your perspective, you're truly the only one here, and everyone is just an aspect of what they are. I mean, and that stems from the impalement, the death experience, or that me thinking I should have died. The only reason I remember that is because it was pitch black. I didn't believe it. So I remembered the experience, even though it didn't happen in the reality my consciousness shifted into. It shifted into the next reality that I could handle, I guess. It probably didn't matter at that time. But see, I don't know. Did I shift into a reality where a lot of people were starting to notice it? I was looking at volcano information then. I'm quite sure a volcano went off that was in Colorado. Well, where it was at, there's no volcano in this timeline, in this reality, where I remember a volcano possibly about to go off. My thought was, hey, maybe it went off and all these people have now shifted into another reality.
Yeah.
Just an idea, just a thought, because you know, it wasn't, there was nothing online, nothing was going on. Then all of a sudden, boom, and it wasn't a lot of people back then, as I recall. There might have been only been 3 or 4 people doing Mandela Effect videos back in 15. It was just starting to grow. 16, it blew up with the whole JFK thing that came out. With that Mandela Effect, that's, you know.
Yeah, 4 seats or 6
that's
seats. Yeah.
One. Yeah, that's a pretty big one, because that's not saying, they took a dash out of Coke, or Kit Kat no longer has a dash, or, you know, it was stovetop stuffing.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it was Stofers. I mean, please, but that, so what? Not just so what? Maybe I made a mistake. But with the JFK thing, you know, first off, too many people remember 4. So many remember 3 and 5.
Some people 3 and 5. Who remembers 3 and 5? I remember 4.
All the time at the bar. I do Mandela trivia at the bar, and a lot of people say 3, a lot of people say 5, most people say 4, and every once in a while you get an NPC that's got to chime in. Oh, there's 6.
Yes. And, so let me ask you. Let's compare some personal experiences, because, you know, changes in commercial logos are common, one that many people can relate to. However, it's the personal Mandela effect in your personal life and changes in your history that can give people kind of a spiritual crisis, because it's no longer commercial. It's like, oh my God, now all of a sudden somebody in my family or somebody I know has less children or more children than I remember them having, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the personal experiences. But, you know, before we get into the personal experiences, I want you to clarify for us the evil, because when you had your impalement incident, you said that you felt like the evil was coming out of you and looking at you. Explain that, please.
And now I would word it as like just negative energy leaving my body. I don't necessarily would think it was evil, because what was looking over my shoulder, I could feel something. I could feel other things watching me. That to me may have been evil. I don't know. But when the release was coming, I wasn't necessarily evil leaving my body, but that was just negativity. I just started to feel freer. I really started to, my whole paradigm changed. The whole, all the information that was coming in, I'm not going to turn this into another topic, but
no, we can.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, it didn't matter, because I realized it couldn't be proved to me either way. I just took everybody's word for everything, and that's when it snapped. I decided, no, I'm not going to take anybody's word for anything anymore. Something that you completely believe in, totally 100%, and have that be totally false, or you don't know. And that's when you go, whoa, wait a minute. I truly 100% believe that, 100%, and it's not, it might not be real, it might not be possible, or it's not true. That's going to snap you back. That's going to snap you into, I don't know, it might make you crazy. It might give you, you know, it might, that's all these people, and talking Mandela effect, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but all these people in hospitals with Alzheimer's and memory problems, hey, guess what? These people are experiencing the Mandela effect, probably on a bigger level, where things are totally changing. And like, that's why they don't remember people, and they don't remember their own family. And, we just give them medication and throw them in a hospital. You know, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, it is a possibility. Now, the thing is, you know, when I know in metaphysical terms, related to Buddhism, because that's what I know best. But in metaphysical terms, and everybody can relate to this, when you raise your frequency and you raise your energy level and you're picking up these higher energies, all those negative emotions, those thought processes that are negative, they cannot go up there with you. They get released. They kind of get shedded out for you, because they can't go up to, they can't go up to those frequencies. The higher frequencies can't hold the the higher frequencies can't hold the lower dense frequencies, because because the frequencies start separating. And that's just the basics. And the thing of consciousness is that people of higher frequency, they usually naturally gravitate towards each other, kind of like-minded. They naturally grow together. That's why different locations in the world, different cities, different countries, different states, they have different frequencies and they have different consciousness levels. Some are much lower, some are much higher. But it's always a living thing. It's not going to be consistent all the time. It's going to change and fluctuate based off of the consciousness of the people living there or of that person. But the thing is that basic energy, lower frequency, dense frequencies cannot stay in the higher dimensions of consciousness. So when you had that experience, when you tell me that you had that experience and you felt like this evil or negativity, or kind of like you felt like you were kind of just shedding all of this dense old dark energy, this about whatever it is, it was being released, because technically, in my understanding of it, it can't go up to those higher frequencies. And so if you're going to go and tune into the higher frequencies and see reality much more crisp, much more clear, then it cannot exist in you.
Excellent.
So that makes sense. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be permanent. You can always go back to that existence, just readopt it.
I'm more volatile than cryptocurrency, believe me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
I'm always up and down with what's going on.
But that's normal. That's energy, and we are energy. We are energy, just fine-tuning yourself all the time. And so if we're energy and we're fine-tuning ourselves to the higher frequencies of reality, when we change our perception of something, then the lower, denser viewpoint of things no longer makes sense. And it's kind of like once you open the door, you can't unclose, you can't go back, because you know too much. You can't go back to that lower dense perception of reality. So let's talk about profound personal experiences, because for me, I went to Dallas, Texas for vacation one time, and I went to where JFK, the assassin, where he shot JFK. And I went to that one building, and so it's a museum now. So I went to that building, walked through, saw the window in which they had a mock-up of him doing that. And they also had a mock-up of the car, and they had pictures, and it was 4 seats. And I went to that museum and I walked around, and it was 4 seats. I remember being 4 seats. So that affirmed to me from my personal experience. And I've done lie detector tests, and it came back true that I do recall it was 4 seats. And I also got it substantiated when I went to that museum and saw that it was 4 seats. And so when I see people and I see these images where they say the JFK assassination had 6 seats in the car, I am going, according to my lie detector test, that's not how I remember it, and that's not what I experienced at that museum. So so that's one personal experience, but relating to logos. And there's other logos that, a lot of people remember as well. You can take those Mandela Effects or reality shift quizzes, but it's the personal ones that is most profound. So what personal ones in your personal life have you had that you want to share?
A small one that's not that big a deal. I was working at the bar. It was really busy. I opened up the refrigerator and it was empty, and I closed the refrigerator and I yelled down to the other end of the bar, "Hey, where did you put all the Fireball?" And they said, "It's right in front of you." So I opened up the refrigerator and there was a dozen of them right there. And I didn't have, and I just laughed. It was so busy, and I was kind of not getting away from the Mandela effect, but I was like pretty fried and just, I can't do anymore. It's like, I got the message. What do I need to keep doing this for? So I was kind of getting away from it. So I was like, whatever. And I just laugh it off and continued on my day. There was also another time after I moved from Atlantic City to Pittsburgh. It was announced that a friend of mine passed. I knew he was sick. I knew he had cancer. I say friend of mine, more of an acquaintance. We hung out maybe, 10 times in 20 years. It's like I worked with him. He was just what do you call it? A worker person that you.
Coworker.
When I moved out to Colorado, maybe a year and a half later, he's trying to friend me on Facebook. And I'm just like, what's going on? And, I was like, it's probably a scam. I blew it off as probably a scam or whatever. But even then, I wasn't into the Mandela effect. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. I blew it off as a scam. Yeah, that guy's alive today. I've seen
Did you ever talk to him?
No.
You didn't talk to him to kind of verify?
No, most of the people I used to work with in Atlantic City knew I was always into esoteric stuff. I was known as the conspiracy guy. They could care less what I was talking about, most of them. I mean, there was a group of 5 of us that sat around talking about, as a matter of fact, Ron, who's not with us in this timeline right now, he was telling me, he goes, yeah, you wait till one day when you wake up and the golden arches on McDonald's, the color's completely different. It'll be a color that you've never seen before and you can't even describe. And some people are going to tell you that's the way it's always been.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then, he went on to say, oh, by the way, we never went to the moon. And that's when I went, all right, man, you got to slow down. I can only take so much. That's weird because I couldn't grasp the idea of the colors changing and some people saying, oh, it was always like that. And other people saying, no, it changed. I couldn't grasp that idea. So I kind of waved that aside. And he talked to me about never going to the moon and that whole thing being set up. And I was like, I was so programmed. I was not ready for that. And, but then we started talking and there was a group of 5 of us that really got deep. Vladimir Valerian information and William Cooper information. And it was fun. Good times. A lot of the stuff I don't believe now. I don't necessarily believe outer space. Well, I don't believe outer space is what they tell us it is. I don't necessarily believe that. I think there's something there. I don't, water's above and the water's below. I do think there's something there because of the experiences I had that I explained in my book. I do believe the stars are intelligent beings. They are not suns with planets revolving around them. Mm-hmm. I've been questioning, well, which ones are good and which ones are bad, and is there good and bad there? And it's, to me, I thought that's a duality that would have been just on the physical plane. So there's a lot of questions that I have. And what else is down here? I mean, look, I got the NPC question going on now. I don't know if I wrote about that in the book at all.
Let me ask you something.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to ask you questions because now what happened to Ron? He was your friend in one reality. What happened to him now?
Yeah, he died in 2002.
Okay.
He died in 2002. I forget from what.
Okay, so he passed away. Okay.
Yeah.
So he didn't just like disappear, like nobody remembers Ron.
No, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure all the other 4 guys. One guy might still be with us, but I'm pretty sure they all passed. It's like it kind of sucks because I think many times, boy, I'd really like to talk to these guys about this stuff. I got my 2 other close friends that when I first spoke about this stuff in 2015, when it was happening, I was calling them and they were both blowing me off. And I'm like, wow, that ain't like you guys. You guys were into this stuff too. And well, they got families now and they got to pay the bills. They can't worry about shifting realities. I was talking to an ex-girlfriend who's married now with kids. She can't be worried about, shifting timelines. She was interested and she spoke to me like it was a eulogy, and it was right after the impalement. I find all that really interesting. And I'm pretty sure my sister and daughter, both of them I've noticed them change back and forth.
And what did you notice? What kind of changes did you notice in your sister and your daughter?
Whether they were on board with the Mandela effect or not, or busy with physical reality. I can tell.
Do you think they're a different version? Do you think they're a different version from the last time?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think. And people are like, oh my God, how can you say that's not your original daughter? And I'm like, she's still my daughter. She's the daughter that I would have in this timeline. I don't know what to tell you. I don't care. I'm a realist. I at this point, I mean, what am I going to do? I have to worry about this. And without being selfish, it's about this. And it's about how I react and interact with that. If there's other people I'm talking to, I could choose to be nice to them. It's not going to be about whether I'm nice to them or anything. It's going to be about how I react and what I did. It's about my reactions to this situation, not whether or not they're okay now because I helped them, or whatever. That to me, it's all about it. It sounds solipsistic, I think it's pronounced, but it's about you.
Yeah.
From your perspective, but you can't be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yeah. I could tell you some of my personal Mandela Effect experiences about people dying and coming back. We have a beach home across the water from where I live here. But anyways, over a decade ago, right around 2012, there was a gentleman who had passed away, and the whole community had acknowledged his death and his funeral and everything else. And he was a nice guy. And they had shutted up the house and everything else because he passed away. Well, the very next summer, we're going back there again. The very next summer, all of a sudden, he's alive. He didn't pass away. There was never a funeral. And I'm going, I thought he passed away last year. And they're going, no, he's fine. He's been here the whole time. He's still, so his whole family knows he's still alive. He comes over, but every single time I go, I always look at the house to see if I can see him. I have never since then physically seen him, but everybody else acknowledges, and even his family, that he is still alive and he still lives here and comes and visits. So according to everybody else in the reality,
there are some things in religious texts about the dead rising at the end times. You remember anything about that?
Yeah, I remember some
Buddhist teachings about that.
Well, it's basically different versions of reality and different versions of people. And so based on your level of consciousness, when you change your
interpretation.
Yeah, that's our interpretation. So when you change your frequency, you go to a different reality, and everything that fits in that reality, you usually don't jump too far different. It's always like a slight different, kind of like tuning yourself little by little by little, because if you tune yourself too much, you almost have the Matrix experience where you're going, no, this is not real. I can't handle it. It's too much change. So for most people, when they fine tune their frequency and they fine tune their consciousness, which is all just frequency because we are energy, they are just matching up to the next best reality, and the next best, and typically, according to the understanding, when somebody is a higher frequency, everybody else that interacts with them in that reality kind of gets a little bit of the residue from that person, and so they level up as well, just through osmosis. And so that's how you have some people who start having reality shifts, and then you have more, and then you have more, and then you have more, because it is infectious. Higher energy people are infectious because we just exude this energy, and people just like animals and children usually just kind of gravitate to these people naturally because they just have a loving, healing energy. They're much more connected to, in Buddhism term, Christ consciousness. And of course, it's not permanent. It fluctuates based on the person's perception of reality and the consciousness level. But anyways, they do affect the greater reality because it's kind of like residue. It's like osmosis. So that's just in short. That's a basic interpretation and understanding from a Buddhist perspective. But from my personal experience, I have never seen that resident physically, but everybody else acknowledges he's still there. Another thing, same community. They had this one sign that said, because it's a private beach property, and that said this private property of et cetera, right in the middle of the beach, right in the middle of the tide water, the tide lines. And so I was like, oh, well, that's going to keep people from walking to private beaches. Like in Washington, We don't, not all beaches are public. And for the private ones, many of the houses are so far into the water that, like, literally when you're walking the tide, you're literally walking in somebody's backyard. So, yeah, so it's kind of intrusion, because it's like, well, you're kind of walking in my backyard because so it's not like Hawaii where it's really far out there, and the houses are really, really far back. So, and there's usually a park in between. So anyways, there's a sign, and then a week later I come through and that sign's not there. That sign is on somebody else's property, not on the beach water area. And I asked, where did the sign go? And they said, that's always been there. What are you talking about? We don't. I was like, well, you used to be right here. And my husband, my boyfriend at the time, he's like, oh yeah, I remember that too. Where did it go? And we talked to the caretaker, and he said, no, it's always been over there. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm talking to you, another version of the caretaker about what happened. So we have these quite often. And most people remember it being over there. A couple people remember it being in the middle of the water line, where we remember it. So we're like, so when I pick out certain things and some people corroborate without me saying anything and they say the same thing, I make note of the people, like, you, okay, you're tapped in, you're tapped in, and you are just part of this matrix. You're just another part of this matrix. Because I that's what I typically do when I talk to certain people. There's also been events where I had a friend, and I have physical evidence of this. I had a friend, two friends I worked with at work in the same company for a very, very long time. Anyways, one works the night shift. Okay, so she works accounts in Australia. Another one works the day shift with me, works accounts in the US. And we work in IT. So all of a sudden, my friend says that the one that worked night shifts, she switched to the day shift and switched to working the US accounts. And she said, oh, I'm going to be working in your time again. Let's have lunch. And we're going, huh? You already did that like 2 years ago. And she's like, no, I just did it just now. I just put in the order to transfer my team to now I'm working days. And we said, no, you did it 2 years ago. And this version of my friend who showed, when I was having children, my first child, I was curious about the C-section. I didn't have a C-section, but she showed me her C-section scar. I said it was really, really small. I was like, okay, I'll make note of that in case I have to make a decision. But this version, she never had a C-section. She said, no, I've always had natural births. I've never had a C-section. And I had her show me the scar area, and it's not there. So I'm like, okay. The same person, when my other friend said, we both were in the same group, and we're going, no, she made this transfer 2 years ago. And my friend's going, yeah, I know. I remember that as well. I have evidence of it on email. I mean, go back through my old Outlook emails from 2 years ago when she would reach out to us that she's going to be shifting. We should be having lunch together. And I said, I know the same thing. I have Facebook messages from 2 years ago saying the same exact thing. And so we both pulled it up, our old emails. It's timestamped from 2 years ago, and we showed it to our friend that switched and said that she's just switching over like this week. And she said, she said, I can't believe that. And I said, well, unless it's somebody else, that's you. So you have two of your friends saying that you made this shift 2 years ago. So you're another version of our friend. We still love you. You're our friend in this reality. There's only one of you in this reality. So we're not going to not have lunch with you and hang out with you, but we have physical evidence that we existed in another reality, or you exist in another reality that is on a separate timeline than the one that we're engaging in now. So we have physical evidence, and there's so many of those examples in my life. So for when people move beyond logos and changes and just basic Mandela Effect quizzes, and they start noticing changes in their physical reality, in their personal life, history changes, etc., it can put them into almost like a spiritual crisis, or kind of like a space where they don't know what to do with themselves because it's just too much for them to grasp. So in your mind, from somebody going through this personally, how do you adjust to whenever you change into a different reality and some of these aspects in your life has changed? How do you adjust to it? So,
Well, now I just do it. I mean, you can't fight it. In the beginning, I noticed my attitude would change. I could, like, if there was a shift, a lot of negative things around me seemed to happen. I started to become aware of that, and when I became aware of that, I stopped the negativity. I'm pretty sure I was creating that anyway, maybe because of the new energy coming in or whatever. But no, you just have to go through it. You can't, and if you're anxious and upset and scared, you just got to go through it. I mean, there's nothing else you're going to do. I mean, you could go back to the ball, as I like to say. You could ignore it. A lot of people are in denial because their mind justifies every mistake in their head. They're like, oh, well, I just read it wrong, or oh, I just looked at it different, or no, yeah, I know the yield sign was yellow, but maybe I'm thinking of this the stoplight. Maybe it was always red, and I'm just thinking of the stoplight. I mean,
is a yield sign a different color than yellow?
It's always been red in this timeline.
Oh, it's yellow to me.
No, you'll never see another yellow yield sign again. I promise you.
Okay, I'm gonna look because I just saw a yield sign today. It was yellow in Seattle. So.
And you can go to that exact same one right now, and it will be red.
Okay. I would love to see it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
You're gonna. The yield sign happened to me a couple years back. I'll say 3 years ago. It kept changing on me, and I wasn't looking. I wasn't noticing it. It was like it was trying to communicate with me. It was the yellow, but then I saw it red, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's a red triangle, and then it was red with white writing. Then the whole thing for me in December, I'm going to guess 2017. December, maybe 18. The whole month of December, it was a red diamond with probably either dark red writing or black writing. I mean, it was very noticeable that it was different. And I'm going, and I had a film. I'm filming it going, oh my God, look at it. But I'm not saying what it is. I'm looking, and then weeks later, I'm looking at the video and it's what it is now. I mean, it's not what I was filming. I'm going to look at it, but I wasn't saying it's a complete red. I didn't describe it. Why would I have to? I was filming it. But then it changed back to the red for me because everybody's going, no. But we did, there's another YouTube channel, Nobleness D. Me and him talked, and he kept going, I remember this video we did, and we were saying, look at the red, this and that. And he went back to that video and he's going, we're not talking about what we're looking at or something to that effect.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Because I really want to get into the nitty gritty of your personal experience and kind of compare and contrast. Because I have very few people I can talk to about this kind of stuff who have gone to this level of changes. Have you also had experiences where you're looking and you're talking to a friend? Let's say I had this experience where I was talking to a friend, and as she was talking, I just immediately saw the reality go whoop, whoop. And I saw the sign, the neon sign behind her for business goes whoop, whoop. And I was
wow.
Whoop. It's like 11:30, and I was like, "What's that?" And I asked her, and she looked at me like weird too. And I looked at her, and I said, "Did you just see that?" And she said, "I did," because we both had this startled look, like, "What the heck just happened?" At the same time, and we were like, "Did you?" And I was like, "I saw that." She's like, "I saw that." I was like, "What did you see?" And she said, "I saw everybody else and all of a sudden go out and then come back in." And I was like, "I saw the neon sign behind you go out and then come back in really quick." Wow. And so we both substantiated the thing, and then we asked people around us, and they're looking at us like,
You're crazy.
Yeah, because she saw the people zoom out and zoom back in. I saw the signs zoom out, zoom back in. Have you ever had those warps?
There was nothing like that, but I did one time. I remember I heard something out the back window. I got up on the couch to look out the back window, and everything froze. I could not. I was conscious. And everything froze. And as soon as I really started to get uptight, and that's when. It might have lasted. I don't know how long it lasted. It could have lasted 3 days. It could have lasted 3 seconds. But I was conscious, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I kept thinking, "Did I hear anything? Was it just me that got paralyzed, or was it like everything?" And I'm quite sure. I mean, thinking back on it, it was just everything stopped, and then started up again.
I have not had the experience. That's really cool. I have not had that experience where everything stopped. I've had the experience where everything slows down. So, for example, I would be sitting. It's almost Matrix. It sounds like a Matrix. But, I would be sitting there with my in-laws, and they would, like this one example. They knocked over a wine glass that was really full. And you know how fast, if you knock over a wine glass, it goes by really fast. It just falls over in real time. But they knocked over this wine glass, and I was just sitting there, and I saw it just go really slow, so I just grabbed it before it spilled onto the person. And everybody on the table was like, "Oh my God!" Because it was really slow. Because all of a sudden they knocked over, and then in slow motion, I saw everybody do, you know, and I was just kind of like, here. And they're like, "Oh my God!" I know. They're like, "Oh my God, you saved the wine glass. How did you do that?" I was like, wow. I just grabbed it. And so I've had a couple of those experiences where time really slows down, or like I'll be walking and I would see, I would hear the wind kind of come through, and I would see the leaves kind of go, and I would kind of feel the slowness of the changes. Like kind of like I'm like tuning in the nature. Tuning in the nature is really easy to do because you can kind of hear the subtleness of the nature. That happens often. You know, usually when there's a traumatic event, like if there's a car accident or something that I'm going to witness or I'm going to be by, usually time slows down. So I like see the car come in and I'm like, "Ooh, what's going on?" So I typically, and that's when I know something's going to happen when it slows down, like something startling or something, you know, unexpected is going to happen when it slows down. So when I notice, I'm like, I'm not thinking something's going to happen. I'm just thinking, "Oh, okay, well, it's slowing down." So I've had those experiences. Have you had any of those time slowing down kind of experiences?
Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I had quite a few experiences back in 15, 16. They started to taper off. I mean, I still have them now, but I don't care. I don't know how else to put it. You know, I'm like, I don't want to say I don't care because I do, but I'm kind of over it. I mean, just the other night I was out looking at the stars and I'm like, wow, they're gorgeous. And then I got a light, just got really bright and disappeared that quick. It was nothing like the experience I had in the book where the stars just were all coming at me for a good 2 minutes or whatever. It wasn't like that, but to me, that's just like a little nod just to remind me, you know, remember where you are.
Yeah, you're in the holographic matrix or whatever you want to call it.
You're not what they told you at the very least. You're not what they told you. I may have been at one point, but I have strange memories of my past, like thinking, boy, I'm going to be really old in the year 2000. I really want to make it to the year 2000 because I want to see the end times, and that's all I was into. And I'm not even old yet, so I don't understand that, you know, because I'm like, wow, I was only like 35, I think, in 2000. So I don't really think at any age, maybe 15 or 16, am I going to think that's old? I don't think so. I don't think 15-year-old thinks a 30-year-old is old. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, just weird stuff like that. I'm like, I'm probably 150 years old. But I'm also coming across things where I'm starting to think civilization is the human civilization has been around a lot less than people are saying. The mud flood information I've been looking at and thinking, wow, this town that I live in is an occupied town. They didn't build this. This was occupied in the 1800s. They did not build these structures. I'm looking at it going, there would have been no reason to build that. It's and such beautiful architecture. Oh, and the first floor is underground. Why did they build the first floor underground? I don't know. It's just kind of weird. It's just stuff like that. I'm like, and so I'm thinking most of history is made up. You know,
Well, history
and we could be in the middle of a reset right now.
Yeah, don't get that started. But you know, history is when somebody is shifting reality, history is changing because you have people who remember Nelson Mandela dying in jail.
Yeah, so history
In this
changes all the
reality.
time. You're right.
Yeah, and then you have people who like my best friend, she remembers, both my best friends, they both remember they went to a book signing with me to meet Cynthia Sue Larson, who wrote Reality Shifts. And she did the quiz on Nelson Mandela, but both my best friends at the time said that Nelson Mandela died in jail. And we quizzed them and they said yes. And I said, no, he died as the president of South Africa a couple of years ago. I pulled up my phone. I pulled up the latest article about it. I showed it to them and they were flabbergasted. They're like, what kind of weird reality sideshow did you bring us to, Vaughn? Because it completely turned up their idea of history completely, because now everybody else in the room is going, no, Nelson Mandela died as the president of South Africa, not in jail. So where are you guys?
You know what? Yesterday, I think yesterday, yeah, it was yesterday, because I was trying to tell everybody about the interview we were doing and another one I got coming up. So doing this live thing, and I had some old videos up that not even old. They were just a week old or whatever. I'm putting them up. And I remembered this interview at the bar. I was filming it. This lady kept saying she was in the torch of the Statue of Liberty. I said, no, you weren't. And it's not what I said. I said, well, I believe you, but nobody's been allowed in the torch ever in this reality. And she's like, what are you talking about, this reality? I said, you have memories of being in the torch. She goes, yeah, I walked around the whole torch. She goes, I remember it as a child. I said, you got pictures or anything? She's like, no, I was a child. I said, all right, look it up. Look up the Statue of Liberty. Well, they start talking about the torch, how you're not allowed in it. She's reading the date. She's going, that's impossible because I was in it. They're talking about the Black Tom incident, where the Germans, it was the first attack on U.S. soil. Nobody's ever heard of it. They never heard of it. They're going, what is this?
I never heard of it until, yeah.
The lady's going, look, you really screwed up my reality because I know I was in the torch. And I had it on the filming her going, I can't believe it. It says that you can't go in I wouldn't have been in the torch. She goes, but I'm telling you, I was.
Yeah.
So yeah. I thought that was interesting. I just popped that up yesterday, so that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
But
and
I don't even do videos anymore. I don't even try not to.
Well, but the thing is that here's the thing too is there's a lot of people that argue about changes in the Bible, and the Bible, if you look at the Bible in this reality, it's the wolf and the lamb, not the lion.
Yeah,
and the
I know
wolf.
about that one.
Yeah,
right, I remember the lion.
Right. I remember the lion
and
always the lion and the lamb, and even in movies like Twilight, for instance, they refer to the lion and the lamb. Now, I know, I know it's the lion and the lamb because I'm Buddhist, and one of the stories told in Buddhism about the first Buddha was the lion and the lamb, because the lion is the roar of the Buddha's voice, teaching to the lambs. So it's just a short of that story. And that's all over Buddhist canon is the lion and the lamb. And so when they said, no, it's the wolf and the lamb, I'm like, And That's not cooperating, just like saying, put your hand over your heart, across your chest to say the Pledge of Allegiance, but your heart's in the middle of your chest. And they still tell
Right.
you,
Why are you doing that?
yeah, why are you doing that? They move the kids' hands. They're like, no, put it over your chest. Don't put it in the middle of your chest, the middle of the chest. So you get a lot of those confusion, which shows you, oh, there's a Mandela effect that's going on. So let me ask you this. So I do a lot of sixth sense consultations around this stuff. In Buddhism, for some people, which it has been going on in the ancient Vedas of Hinduism for more than 7,000 years, and much longer too. But and I write books about reality shifts in Buddhism and Hinduism and consciousness. But a lot of my clients ask this: is it them or is it consciousness that's making these changes? Consciousness being source, God, whatever you want to call it, the universe. Who's making these changes? Or is it, I mean...
Well, I think I'll say source probably put a couple out there to help open up people's minds. But I think since then, I think we've been able to maneuver things. With the personal Mandela effects, I mean, there's things that I've experimented with. I sincerely wanted to leave here and go to Arizona without the snowstorm coming in. It was supposed to be dumping. Radar showed snow all around us except where I was. I was able to get out of town. No snow, no nothing. I thought that was great. The 3 days later, when I got back, as soon as I stepped out of the car, a snowdrop hit me on the nose and it just dumped like crazy. So I was like, well, I didn't change the weather. I just shifted myself into a timeline where the weather was different. So is it me? Is it source? I really think us as conscious beings have something to do with it. I really think we can maneuver it, manipulate our realities. I don't like using the word manipulate too much, but maneuver our realities into more to our liking. That's why we lived through 2020. That's why we lived through 2020. I'm like, because that's what we wanted to live through, I guess, because I think the Mandela effect, one of the reasons that it came across my understanding is because if I would have went through 2020 not understanding that stuff, I'd have been nuts.
Yeah,
I'd have been nuts.
Yeah, you know,
I would not have... Let's not go there.
You know, Anthony, I would concur with that because I have had those experiences as well where like I used to work in downtown Seattle when I went into the office a couple of days a week. I still work remote, but a couple of days a week I would go in. And oftentimes I don't like lines. I do not like huge lines. Sometimes I would do it, but for the most part, I don't like huge lines. I would go to lunch a little early so I can avoid huge lines. But it's in downtown Seattle. It's bustling. There's cars going all over the place. There's people going to shops all day long because there's all these huge buildings that have thousands and thousands of people working it. But oftentimes when I just don't want anybody around, I have come downstairs from my building and there will be maybe a couple people in the stores to get lunch, but literally there's no one walking around. The streets, I can look all directions and there will be no cars driving through, no buses driving through. This is a bustling downtown in Seattle and it's like nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So I'm like, I don't know what happened, but I literally cleared out. Somehow reality cleared out everything for me. So I just walk right up, get what I need, have my peaceful lunch or whatever I'm interested in doing, and then just have a wonderful time because I don't really have a lot of crowds to deal with. And that happens quite often with me when I just don't really feel like dealing with, I like people. I just don't like to be crowded. So it happens a lot.
I definitely think we actually can create like that. And I think I've noticed, and I'm still not doing it as much as I'd like, but my meditations, if I keep up with them, it becomes stronger. to the point where I don't have to create. I don't have to go out of my way to. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't have to go out of my way to do that.
It just
When I
happens.
meditate more often, and when I
Right.
do it like I should, I notice I have better days, easy go. It's easier living. It's just not concerned. I don't have the I don't the NPCs nagging at me, trying to boil me up and tick me off and test me and everything. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, because
Meditating.
every reality has their own news feed, and some will be slightly different as well. Because even during I don't know if you've had any shifts during the pandemic, but I've had some shifts during the pandemic where numbers will completely change, like
Constantly.
constantly. It would be once I change I shift my perspective on things, and I'm over
Yeah, hell.
certain things, like the numbers of how many people got inoculated versus not got inoculated, etc. Those fluctuate all the time, like huge number
I
shifts.
don't even know if I believe any of that, and I didn't even pertain it to the Mandela effect. I was just totally. I don't watch the news at all. I don't listen to that stuff. 2020, I watched more TV than I did in 20 years. I don't watch that stuff. I don't believe it. I think it's a show. It's an act, and if you want that to be your reality, watch more. But that's not my reality. I don't deal with
Right.
that stuff.
Yeah, right.
I am very lucky that I work in a place where nobody bothered me. I didn't put a mask on. I mean, a couple of times they were like, "Listen, you feel like getting laid off this month?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in. Okay, boom." Or, "Hey, we were going to do a catering event. And it's masks only. It has to be. Do you want to do it?" "No, I don't want to do it." "Okay, you don't have to do it." It wasn't a big deal. I'm in a place. I'm in an area where I'm lucky. It's a small town, and nobody's dying, nobody's getting sick, and from what I understand, most of the people are not getting
Yeah,
shots.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because you brought up the Great Reset, and
Mm.
Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg News, a lot of the investor groups are talking about Charles Schwab, the Great Reset,
Mm.
the World Economic Forum, et cetera, et cetera. Event 201. These are not coming from conspiracists. These are coming from Bloomberg Financial News. Okay, so I want to ask you this: what is your perspective on because it has been established in the Pfizer clinical trials report that there are lipid nanoparticles in the mRNA vaccines,
Don't know about it.
and so people have lipid nanoparticles, and what is your thoughts on the people of this reality with these lipid nanoparticles in them? I mean, does it make any change to your reality or to your shifts, or
No.
are you noticing anything different?
Am I noticing anything? Oh,
Oh, sorry,
as
these
far
people.
as far as both races, vaxxed and unvaxxed, yeah, because that's to me. There's only two races now: vaxxed and unvaxxed.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's just and do I say I noticed before they came out with the vaccinations, most people weren't sure, um, and if they were going to get it, they would always say something like, "Well, I'm going to get it. I don't care what anybody else does." But those people now that have gotten the vax are adamant that I should get it. They tell people, everybody, the people that have gotten vaxxed, I've heard people that don't talk like this. They're like, "Yeah, everybody should be forced vax." These are friends of mine. I don't consider them friends, whatever. They're like, "Yeah, people should be forced vax. Everybody should be vaccinated." And I'm like, wow. And I don't say nothing to them, but that wasn't their thought before they got vaxxed. After they got vaxxed, that's and I'm like, wow, that I noticed people are more aggressive to get everybody vaxxed after they've been vaxxed, but not before that.
That might just be the propaganda that they're feeding into. I just wonder if you notice anything different
Could
in their
be.
I just wonder if you're noticing any different in their energy, or if you can tell the difference between certain people based off like just being around them? I mean, just anything, you know, I'm kind of curious how this
You
would
know,
play out in reality.
I'm suspicious of so many things that I won't even bring up. That, you know, do I see? Yeah, I'm always looking for stuff, but I don't care. I think half of my friends are NPCs. You understand that term, right? I mean, I don't care.
Define that for people so who doesn't understand that video game
I
term.
believe it's non-player characters that, like, when you're playing a video game, it's the person you bump into and they don't really say anything. They just kind of, you bump into them. And, you know, don't
So they're
shoot
like,
me. I'm not part of the game. I'm just background.
okay,
That's what I mean by it. And I
right. So,
really think I don't think everybody's an NPC. I think there's other people that are real people that are just aspects of themselves had they been in this reality. I don't think it's actually them. See, you know, it just gets too deep with me, but you can't live your life like that. And I don't live my life like that. I go out and live my life like it's one reality. It is one reality. It is one timeline when it's just your timeline. It's just, you know, when I look back on my life, it's going to be one timeline. Okay,
yeah.
so it changed. It's still one timeline. But yeah,
Right.
I do think you can manipulate it, maneuver, and change it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what I'm saying, but
I just that's the newest thing. There's a term that comes into mind. Because I had a podcast interview on one of the earlier episodes with Cynthia Sue Larson, and we went really
yeah,
deep into her
quite a few
into
times. I met her out in Idaho.
yeah, she's wonderful. But I went really deep into her consciousness to kind of ask her about transhumanism. And she had explained in that episode, which I'll put in the description if anybody wants to listen to that. But she had explained that she has a firsthand account memory of her being from the future, where there are transhumans, where people have been integrating basically nanotechnology into themselves, and so they don't age, and everything looks really idyllic, and there's very few organic humans left. And she really, you know, looks up to the organic humans because they're just going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to work with vitamins and take care of myself and just age naturally. I don't really feel like looking young forever. But for most part, everybody basically bit into the nanotech to live longer and preserve themselves, and everything was just too perfect, too serene. So but she said that she decided to incarnate back into this timeline to do something to help humanity not enter that transhuman reality, because for the organic humans, they existed, but she didn't really know too much about where they existed. They kind of were in their own little colonies and did their own things, but she existed in the idyllic nanotech transhuman civilization. It was very, very fascinating. And so, you know, she's back here and she's like, I don't know how she is supposed to help people shift their reality with Mandela Effect, etc., that she writes about, and how that's going to help prevent transhumanism reality to come into fruition, which she says many others who chose to incarnate back in this timeline were trying to prevent, because AI pretty much took over the world. Now here we are in 2020, 2021, and what are we putting into people? Lipid nanoparticles. It's the beginning of transhumanism. And so,
Yeah, there very well could be. I mean, they want to force it and everything else. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, in that reality with Cynthia Sue Larson, with the transhumanism, they have gone through a lot of iterations to get to that point in technology so that it's not dangerous to people. But she doesn't know anything beyond what happened before that. Now, my question for that is for people who are shifting reality and sensing these changes in reality, is if they know anything about what is the level of casualty that would take place in order to get to that level of transhumanism, where nanotech has fused with humans to create this idyllic, perfect world where people live along and, age really less, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. That's why I asked those questions, to be like, I wonder if you have anything different from what you
No,
notice in people.
I got away from the transhumanism thing, the AI computers. Not got away from it. It's there. It's part of it. Um, I don't think computers are taking over the world. That's not, to me, I don't think that's part of it. It could be. I mean, you're saying she got deep and went into the future. Hey, it's most definitely a timeline somewhere.
It is a timeline somewhere. Yeah, and the
Yeah, I'm sorry.
oh yeah, no worries. And so it is a timeline somewhere. If somebody has a recall or something, it is a timeline that exists somewhere.
Sure,
You just might not be existent in it now.
I
Just
could
like
see that it could go in that direction. Absolutely. I mean, that's especially if what you're saying is true. I mean, I kind of suspected something like that anyway. I think most of the people in that area that talk about that stuff suspect that they're actually trying to depopulate the planet. I've been hearing that a lot. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And don't make me define they, but they're very slow and specific with what they do. They could take 1,000 years to get something done. So I mean, yes, this is the beginning, and this could be the great reset. No, it could still be 50 to 100 years away.
Yeah,
That's slow they work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting.
I was just gonna say, I mean, that's how, if you look from like the 50s on to now, I mean, look at how they got everybody hooked on electronics, finances. You need to work to get money, so you're hooked on work, and you have to work. You shouldn't have to work. You should do what you want, live as a human being the way you want to live, not absolutely have to work 80 hours a week to survive. I mean, but that's what they've done, and people are just used to it. They just do it. Okay, this is what I got to do.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way on one hand, but on the other, if my theories, not even my theories, just theories I plucked from a bunch of other people that are correct, that I guess the 1800s is when technology really took off, 1800s, I guess. And according to the Bible, that's when a group of people see, and it's not. It's according to the Bible, according to the numbers in the Bible that somebody else interpreted, that the year would have been 1850, that they're all going to be let out of the pit. And I'm like, well, that lines right up with technology and when all that started to come about. So that makes sense. So in one respect, we've been here for thousands of years and didn't have any technology till they came along. So did they do us a favor? Because we'd still be, hunting for food up in the mountains and stuff. We'd still be building, shacks. Because if you look up and down these streets, there's shacks. The houses are tiny little shacks that they put up in the 1800s that are still there.
Right.
But these big buildings out on the main street, I don't know.
The thing that's really interesting is because in Buddhism, when we have the belief that you pre-plan your life and you pick which life you want to, which they're almost like excursions. Each life is an excursion filled with a lot of different things that you do. But you pre-plan your life and the excursions you're going to do. And when you pre-plan, you don't have to pick linear timelines. You can dot back and forth.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually coming across information now where we don't actually have to live a linear life now. And I'm not. I think it's probably possible. I think the Mandela Effect has something to do with that as well. That's something I'm actually looking into. I'm going to be talking with somebody in a few weeks, maybe a month. And that's some of the area he deals with the energy and linear time. And I believe Bentonho Massaro, I think his name is. And Massaro is his last name. He talks about that. I really enjoyed those talks. That really intrigues me because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Yeah. I'm just assuming I have to go on this linear. I might not have to.
Yeah. Yeah, you might not have to. And you also don't have to age as quickly as people think you have to age.
Well, I'm not. Look at this.
I know. Look at, I'm 42. So I've had these gray hairs my whole life. So even as a baby.
I'm like 98. I think the only thing that's aging for me is my teeth, but let's not go there.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I in my hypnosis sessions, I typically get starseeds, people who have incarnated from different dimensions, different planets, different realities, coming in here and going, God, what's wrong? What's the deal here? Because they're basically like field agents trying to learn about humanity. And I also get quite a bit of people who have had previous incarnations in the future, coming back going, God, this is so archaic. So, I just ask the questions. I just put them in the induction, ask the questions, whatever come out is what comes out. And that's for them to learn from, take with them, answer their questions, etc. Because I ask a lot of deep questions to kind of get deeper and deeper into the experience so we can really, once we're in there, understand what's going on. So so that aspect, I'm very fascinated about souls that incarnate from the future into the past, me being one of them, and being an observer of this reality and the consciousness of this reality. So and then also I'm very fascinated with people who have had incarnations in previous planets, dimensions, galaxies, incarnating into this one, and trying to adjust to what the deal is going on here with humanity. So I'm still doing research and trying to understand. A lot of these people that I have come across that find me for consultation, a lot of them have had personal Mandela effects or reality shifts in their personal lives that go beyond logos and changes, that they need some way to answer or at least understand consciousness and the holographic matrix in which we create and live in. So it's kind of a wake-up call for them. So and no one in their religions are able to help them. So somehow through the grace of whatever, they find me and we go through it and kind of set them on the way. So this is the common theme that I get, is people like you and I. Now, the thing I want to know from you is, how are Mandela effects helping people awaken to the holographic matrix in which we create from? Do you have an answer for that?
How is it helping? I mean, I know how it helped me. I mean, it helped me because I investigated it and at some point decided I needed to understand what it was, at least as much as I could, but I had to stop hunting them down. That I just really felt like I got to stop chasing them. That's all I'm doing is chasing Mandela effects. That was getting annoying.
They just come to me. I stopped chasing. They just come to me. So now I just basically take cases after.
Right.
Cases.
If you stop, then they really get in your face. But I think I don't know if this is true or not, but I just figure instead of giving up, I have my theories, and I think that was enough. I mean, for now. I mean, because I still see stuff. I just blow it off.
You just adjust. You just adjust.
Most of the time I don't have to adjust. If I'm meditating properly, I don't have to. I just, deal with it. But yeah, I mean, today I ran into a guy that I recognized, but he acted like we were best friends. If anything, I was his bartender once or twice, that was it to me, but I don't know. A couple years ago, I was doing an interview at the bar, and the girl came up to me. She's like, "Anthony, oh my God!" And I'm looking at her, going, "Well, I never seen you before in my life. I would have definitely remembered you."
Stuff
like that. I mean, I got that on video. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And do I sound stupid? How many times in my life did I notice something like that? And I don't want to say nothing because everybody's going to think I'm nuts, and just blow it off, like McDonald's changing to McDonald's. Saw that in 78, 79 for me.
It's always been McDonald's for me.
Well, I remember when I was younger, MAC. It was MAC, the Big Mac. It's not the Big Mick. It's not, it's not Mac Nuggets. Why do they have the Big Mac? If it wasn't McDonald's, I mean, but that's just, and that happened. And I had couple other people say they noticed the change from Mac to Mick in the 80s. So I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting, because now you're catching it at a different time. And we've noticed that.
Right.
Some people see a change here, and some people get on and they're going, oh my God, the Ford logo changed. It's a brand new Mandela effect. You're like, dude, they've been talking about that for 5 years. What do you mean? It's not a new one. But for him, it may have been. Just like
I have one for you.
Just like the yellow yield sign, the red yield sign is going to be a new Mandela effect for you.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever had a building all of a sudden appear that was not there before? And buildings don't just come up in a day.
No, and how about go backwards? When I was in Mississippi, I was walking down the street. I walked up to Burger King. At the time, one of the other experiences I had, Orbs told me not to eat meat. So I was trying to steer away from. Yeah,
who told you not to eat meat?
They were Orbs.
They're Orbs. How do you communicate with these Orbs?
I didn't. I walked outside and they were there above my head. It is in the book, very descriptive, how these things just were over my head, and 2 of them, and about the size of cars. Translucent is what I've discovered the word is. And the one started projecting paragraphs of information in my head, and I was in shock, and I was like, I'm not getting all that. And I said it out loud, I'm not getting all that. And then it just started to give me bullet points of information. And then the one on the left dissipated, and then on the one on the right started to shoot a little bit more information at me, and then took off. And then, why did we go off on that?
Well, the reason why I asked, you brought something.
15.
Right, you brought something up, Orbs, because I have had clients that take pictures of orbs in their videos, and
it wasn't that kind of orb.
Okay.
These things were the size of cars, and afterwards, I'd say a few weeks later, I was watching a video of a guy zooming in on stars, and I noticed that the orbs looked very similar to the stars that he was zooming in on.
Yeah, I have a video. Yeah, because I was curious about the orbs, because my experience of orbs is a little bit different. I actually have a video of my husband proposing to me at a nightclub before his band played, and there's all these little orbs everywhere in the video, but the orbs are shooting across the stage and across the area. They're just they're just all moving around, and I'm pointing out to people like, did you see that dust ball? It just shot over to the other side of the stage, and it just shot over to the people and shot back over. That's not a dust ball. There's something going on. And I have those videos, and so that's why when you said that, I was like, explain these orbs a little bit further, because they must be different than the orbs that I experienced.
Yeah, I really suspect that they could have been a part of the stars or some kind of intelligent being. I could have wrote a book in the Bible with the stuff that happened to me in 2015.
Well, let me ask you this. In your book, you discuss how people are multidimensional beings experiencing multiple timelines. Can you explain that further?
Well, I did earlier when I said, well, you're just, from my perspective, I'm just an aspect of myself, and my consciousness is shifting through other timelines where other people are going to be different. So things aren't changing. I'm changing. Okay, that's, to me, I'm shifting into a timeline where things are different. So they didn't change. It's like the yellow yield sign didn't change the red. I shifted into a timeline where they were always red. That's really all that is. As far as the multi-dimensional part, yeah. By experiencing the Mandela effect, you're experiencing more than one reality or one dimension or density or whatever you want to label it at a time. So, and that's the other thing. We were talking about that before, as far as not having to live a linear life. the linear
Yeah.
lifestyle. I got into those topics with Kimberly Lynn Hansen. I met her at the Idaho conference, the Mandela Effect conference. That linear thing keeps coming up for me, so it's something that I'm looking into now.
Yeah, I'm hoping to. I'll see what happens, because sometimes when I think something is best for the timeline change, it might not be best. Some people's terrible experiences are actually meant to help them, propel them into creating a better reality for them. So I try not to
That's one of the reasons. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why I kind of gave up on some stuff, because I just don't care. And I'm like, well, you know what? The sun could be blotted out tomorrow, and I'd be like, not surprised. What are you going to do? And it's like, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, I hope that that's not what I need. I hope I don't need to be shocked, because I mean, yeah, I probably, if I saw a UFO, I'd probably grab the camera and go, woohoo! And then, come down to earth and go, wait a minute. Big deal. Okay, big deal. It's really what's, I'm like, I don't know. And that's, a lot of people need to be shocked into things. I don't know if I can be shocked. I probably shouldn't say that.
Well, there is a lot in creation that you have yet to experience. So leave some space open for a little shock and awe. More awe than shock. Let me ask you this. Do you have a last, because it's been very fascinating. I love this. I go on and on about personal experiences and different things. But do you have a last message or suggestion for people, building a fifth dimensional society of, with higher frequency? Last message.
Buy cats. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I don't have a message for everybody else. I've zeroed in on myself, not in a selfish way. It's like, if I'm dealing with someone else, it's going to be about my reaction to me. I'm not going to worry about what other people are doing and what they got going on. If you see a change, maybe you can write it down, get into it for a while, explore it. Like I said, to me, I feel like I've really moved on. I said it in my fourth video. Mandela Effect and Flat Earth are stepping stones. They don't seem like it now, but they're going to be stepping stones to something even more spectacular. And that's what I see going on now. The life around me I've created since the Mandela Effect is 300 times better than what I had back then. I am doing so much better than I've ever done in my life because of that. Is it because of the Mandela Effect? I don't know. I do live my life differently now. I do feel and hear what's going on. I can feel the energy in between my hands. I'm always playing with it. I can feel my hands laughing as I do this. I can feel the excitement in my hands. I mean, that's the area I'm moving on to now. I took a couple year breaks just making videos on YouTube about Mandela Effects. That was a break. That was me taking a break, because there's another step. You need to move on from that. You're getting stuck. I really think people chasing Mandela Effects are stuck.
Yeah. Well, there are different levels of consciousness. Right. Well, there's different levels of consciousness.
So maybe they're not stuck. They're just at a different level.
Yeah, it's just they've graduated to the Mandela Effect, or understanding reality shifts, and then they'll eventually go on beyond that to the next level of consciousnness, whatever that is, and then on, because it's always a continual process. So I love that. So just don't limit yourself to the Mandela Effect. You'll keep on going beyond that.
No, that's what I'm looking into, the whole linear time thing, quantum physics, quantum mechanics. Is that stuff even real? Do you know what I mean? It's just more stuff they fed us, so I don't know. But math, is it real? Is math real? Is science real? This is stuff they fed us. So I don't know. I look at it, learn from it, grow from it, use it if I can.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, it's been a fascinating conversation. I very much adored it, and I want to have so much more. But thank you for offering your thought-provoking book. Everybody, go and get it. If you're into Mandela Effects reality shifts, it's a great one to add in because everybody's perspective is valid. So go and get a copy of Anthony's book, Mind Beyond Matter: The Mandela Effect. And you could just visit Amazon.com and you can look up the book title or Anthony Santosusso, and you will find it there. And aside from that, thank you kindly to our listeners for listening to. You're welcome for listening to another for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.